The debate around rugby officiating has reached another fascinating turning point, and while players, coaches, and supporters continue to celebrate the speed and intensity of the modern game, there is also a growing conversation about whether the sport has become too dependent on referee decisions. Rugby today is faster than it has been for many years, with more ball in play, better athlete conditioning, and improved attacking systems. At the same time, however, every major international test seems to include moments where the spotlight shifts away from the players and lands directly on the officials. Instead of discussing brilliant tries, tactical kicking, or outstanding defensive efforts, fans often find themselves debating yellow cards, scrum penalties, and controversial interpretations of the laws. That reality has inspired fresh discussion about whether World Rugby could introduce several relatively small law adjustments that might reduce unnecessary stoppages, minimize game-defining referee decisions, and allow the players to determine more of the outcome on the field. The discussion is not about criticizing referees or suggesting that officials are performing poorly. In fact, many experienced observers believe refereeing standards have never been higher. Modern officials are fitter, better prepared, and supported by technology that previous generations could only imagine. They communicate clearly, work closely with assistant referees and television match officials, and operate under enormous pressure in front of millions of viewers around the world. Every decision they make is replayed from multiple camera angles, analyzed by television commentators, debated on social media, and discussed by former players and coaches. The challenge is not that referees are making too many mistakes. The challenge is that the current laws ask them to make too many match-defining decisions in situations where even the smallest interpretation can completely change the direction of a test match. Every rugby supporter has watched games where one penalty, one yellow card, or one technical infringement shifted momentum beyond recovery. In close international contests, where the difference between victory and defeat can be just 3 points, a single whistle often becomes the defining moment. That creates enormous pressure not only for players but also for referees, who must interpret complicated situations in real time while 20,000, 50,000, or even 80,000 spectators react instantly. Television audiences then replay those moments repeatedly, sometimes slowing them down frame by frame to search for evidence supporting one side or the other. The result is that discussions after major matches increasingly focus on officiating rather than rugby itself. One proposal attracting significant attention involves the Scrum, one of rugby's oldest and most technical contests. Supporters of reform argue that the Scrum remains an essential part of the sport and should never disappear. Instead, they suggest changing how technical infringements are punished. At present, many Scrum penalties result in 3-point opportunities, even though the offense itself is often extremely difficult for spectators to understand. Binding angles, body height, collapsing pressure, shoulder position, and engagement timing can all influence a referee's decision. These details matter greatly to front-row specialists, yet they are almost impossible for casual supporters to identify in real time. Imagine a tightly contested international where both teams have defended brilliantly for 75 minutes. One technical scrum penalty near halfway suddenly gives the attacking side an opportunity to kick 3 points and ultimately win the match. Many fans leave the stadium unsure exactly what happened. Even television commentators sometimes disagree about the infringement despite multiple replays. That uncertainty has encouraged some analysts to argue that purely technical scrum offenses should become free kicks rather than full penalties. The reasoning behind this suggestion is straightforward. Rugby should continue rewarding dominant scrummaging while reducing situations where highly technical interpretations immediately produce scoreboard changes. Strong packs would still earn territorial advantage and possession, but marginal technical decisions would no longer carry such dramatic consequences. Referees would continue enforcing the laws, yet the pressure surrounding every scrum engagement could become significantly lower. Naturally, not everyone agrees with that proposal. Coaches responsible for developing elite front rows often argue that reducing penalties would encourage teams to intentionally infringe. If conceding only a free kick becomes the worst possible outcome, some teams might choose lighter, more mobile forwards while sacrificing genuine scrummaging ability. That concern cannot simply be dismissed because set-piece excellence remains one of rugby's defining skills. Supporters of reform answer this criticism by pointing toward another possible adjustment. Instead of ending the contest after a free kick, the attacking team could once again choose another scrum. That option would allow dominant packs to keep applying pressure until they either won clean possession or forced repeated infringements. Persistent offences could still escalate into full penalties or even yellow cards if necessary. Such an approach would continue rewarding powerful scrummaging while reducing the number of isolated technical penalties that directly decide close tests. The conversation also recalls discussions surrounding Damian Willemse, whose tactical decision to call a mark and request a scrum generated widespread debate among players, coaches, and supporters. Although that moment became closely associated with later law discussions, it also demonstrated how creative teams constantly search for strategic advantages within existing regulations. Rugby has always evolved through tactical innovation, and every law adjustment eventually encourages new approaches from players and coaches alike. Another increasingly discussed area concerns advantage and disciplinary sanctions. Rugby's advantage law remains one of its greatest strengths because it encourages attacking play instead of immediately stopping the game. Referees allow play to continue whenever possible, giving non-offending teams the opportunity to create scoring chances despite infringements. Spectators generally appreciate this philosophy because it keeps the action flowing and rewards positive rugby. However, debate arises when a team scores a try during advantage and the referee then returns to issue a yellow card for the original infringement. From one perspective, the attacking side has already received the ultimate reward by scoring 7 points. The defending side has already been punished where it matters most, on the scoreboard. Yet the punishment continues through a temporary suspension, forcing one team to play with 14 players for 10 minutes. Critics argue that this sequence sometimes feels like two major punishments for a single offense, particularly when the infringement itself was technical rather than dangerous. They suggest yellow cards should remain reserved primarily for dangerous foul play or deliberate professional fouls that clearly prevent probable tries. Such a change, supporters believe, would maintain player safety while reducing moments where matches become one-sided because of technical interpretations. Importantly, nobody advocating these ideas suggests weakening rugby's commitment to safety. Dangerous tackles, high contact, reckless clearouts, and intentional acts of foul play would still deserve strict sanctions. Modern rugby has invested heavily in protecting players, especially regarding head injuries and concussion prevention. Those priorities remain essential for the sport's future and should never be compromised. Instead, the wider discussion focuses on separating dangerous behavior from technical infringements. Not every offense carries the same level of intent or risk, yet current sanctions sometimes produce identical outcomes. Distinguishing between genuinely dangerous actions and marginal technical errors could allow referees greater consistency while preserving the physical integrity of the game. Deliberate knock-ons represent another fascinating example. Few supporters disagree that intentionally stopping a likely scoring pass close to the try line deserves severe punishment. Preventing an almost certain try fundamentally changes the contest and should carry meaningful consequences. Yet questions arise when similar incidents occur near halfway with multiple defenders still available and no immediate scoring opportunity. Under current interpretations, both situations can produce yellow cards despite their dramatically different tactical contexts. Some observers believe geography should matter more. A deliberate knock-on inside the defending 22, where clear scoring opportunities exist, may justify temporary suspension. The same action near halfway, with extensive defensive cover remaining, might be better addressed through a penalty alone. Critics of that suggestion acknowledge it introduces another visible boundary into the laws, but rugby already contains many such boundaries. The goal line, touch line, 22, and 50-22 law all create different consequences depending on location. A clearly defined geographical standard, supporters argue, could actually reduce subjectivity by giving referees and players a more predictable framework. Underlying every one of these proposals is the same central objective: keeping 15 players on the field whenever reasonably possible while allowing skill, strategy, and execution to determine results. Rugby has always celebrated physical contests, tactical intelligence, and resilience under pressure. When spectators remember great tests, they usually remember remarkable tries, courageous defensive stands, brilliant tactical kicking, or unforgettable individual performances. Rarely do they hope the defining memory becomes an extended discussion about technical officiating decisions. That is why conversations surrounding possible law changes continue gaining momentum throughout the rugby community. They are not attempts to simplify rugby into another sport or remove its unique character. Instead, they represent efforts to preserve everything supporters already love while reducing interruptions that occasionally overshadow the contest itself. Whether World Rugby ultimately adopts any of these ideas remains uncertain, but the willingness to openly debate the balance between fairness, safety, entertainment, and officiating demonstrates the sport's constant desire to improve. As rugby continues evolving, the challenge will always be finding laws that protect players, reward genuine skill, support referees, and ensure that, whenever possible, the biggest moments belong to the athletes rather than the whistle.